of my career in the Foreign Service, I've been a public diplomacy officer, mostly overseas. And it's a little bit intimidating to have one of my fellow public diplomacy officers here with me, because I may not define it exactly right.
The professor and I were discussing those distinctions.
Okay, well,
Differing points of view on the same topic.
Right.
public diplomacy, to me, from what I have seen and done of public diplomacy, is telling America's story to people people outside of America who have come with their own ideas about what America is, about what our policy is, or maybe not that much interest, or maybe no idea at all. That can be through media, that can be through online, social media, it can be very much, attending gallery openings and attending, festivals and museums and any places where you find large gatherings of people. And increasingly, telling America's story also means listening to everybody else's story, because, as you probably know far better than anyone in my generation, our world is becoming so interactive that no one really wants to listen to something that's one way. It has to be a conversation. So to successfully do public diplomacy and to successfully tell America's story, you have to listen to the person you're talking to, or the culture you're talking to. Understand how what you say may be received, so you can present it in such a way that maybe it will be received well, hopefully, because ultimately we know that we have a lot of things in our society that we may not be proud of, or things that are not positive stories to tell, and we're happy to tell those as well. But ultimately what we're trying to do is advance America's interests and advance our foreign policy through this public diplomacy. So ultimately we want to have a positive impact with what we're doing. Public affairs is a much more media-focused disseminating information. And again, this, in our current world, you can't disseminate without also receiving. One of my favorite platforms to disseminate information on is Twitter. And no one will follow you on Twitter if you don't respond to them. You could tweet 20 things a day. If you don't respond to any of your followers, you're never going to get past 50 followers. We started 10 foreign language Twitter feeds in my bureau, the Bureau of Public Affairs. And our Arabic feed is our most popular. We have 6,000 followers after a month. And I think it's not a coincidence that the people who run our Arabic Twitter feed are also the ones who do the most actual responding and engaging. I think that's what's bringing people in. So my role here in the Bureau of Public Affairs is to bring the two together, bring public diplomacy into public affairs. So some of the traditional things that are done in the Bureau of Public Affairs are a daily press briefing. You may see occasionally on the news a clip of the spokesman, and hopefully in the future spokeswoman, saying a little something about whatever the news story is of that day. So we do that almost every day. And it's a fascinating process behind the scenes to prepare for that daily press briefing, because for that person to get up to that podium and take questions for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, you have to have every single policy clear. So a lot of times our policy, the details of our policies are worked out through what we call the press guidance process. So we start at 7 in the morning usually in PA, and we have the entire building. We send out at actually 6:30 every morning, we send out a list to everyone who works in the State Department or in press offices in the State Department, and in a couple of other agencies, everything we want to know. All the questions that we would ask if we were the media that day. Why are you in U.S., what are you doing over Libya? Do you want Gaddafi to go or do you not want Gaddafi to go? What is our answer to that? So we spend the whole morning receiving answers from the policy people to those questions and going back to them and telling them it's not good enough. you know, saying, that's not an answer. I can't get up at the podium and say that. Give me something real. And so this kind of battling over virtually every policy issue every day is really where a lot of the details of our policies worked out.
And reaching out to the Department of Defense or the Department of Energy on the Japan nuclear reactor.
Right,
or
exactly.
the White House to make sure they're using the same message.
Exactly.
Mornings are very busy.
Mornings are extremely busy. 9:45 every morning we have what we call an interagency communicators call. The spokespeople and people who support the spokespeople in every federal agency get on the phone together. The White House leads the call. They go through. It's always fascinating. You know, I never really thought about what the Department of Justice thinks of what we're doing. But actually, we have a lot to talk about when we're on that call in the morning. Whether we're going to prosecute, you know, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks is a big deal for our foreign policy and a big deal for them. You're looking to me for a prediction?
Are you going
I
to
know,
prosecute?
you look like you wanted me to answer that question. It's a Department of Justice decision. If I had to bet, I would say no. But
Is that just because there's no legal framework through which we can approach?
that's my sense. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm having trouble understanding from my Department of Justice colleagues on what basis they would form an indictment. So, regardless of what the decision is, we will be the ones who get to explain it to the world. So we have to understand, this is my boss, our acting assistant secretary,
Gosh, I
Mike
know there'd be
Hammer.
lunch here.
Yeah. Well, we went through the cafeteria
please.
on the way.
I was just starting to talk
No, go
through
ahead.
public affairs, public diplomacy.
The only reason I'm
Probably
here is
comes
because my
together.
daughter wants to go to Emerson. We're going to be visiting there on the 25th, so I just want to see what kids look like.
A couple of us work in admission, actually.
Well, you may see us. We can-
Yeah, do you have tours? Are you already scheduled for a
Oh, we're-
tour?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
We're
good.
going to
Liz
spend like the
Cormack
entire
Oh,
tour first.
Liz
excellent.
Cormack and
Your
full
daughter's
day
not
there.
here.
So
No.
Oh, awesome.
What area is she interested in?
Oh, okay.
all of it, I think.
All of it?
All of it. I know she's very excited. It was actually I give a lot of credit to you guys because the YouTube video that was on Yahoo. I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest place on earth. I gotta
Really?
go.
What was it?
It was
Well-
a Lady Gaga lip dub video, and our main award show put it on with help from all the organizations on campus.
It's like
That
every
is totally
kid in the
cool.
school is in this video.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's just tremendously fun.
Very
She made me
cool.
watch it. I wanted to go. It's like, yeah, no, it's
Oh,
very.
now, come on. Don't ruin the experience for your daughter by going.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'll just drop her off and disappear. But yeah, no. Well, welcome to State. I just wanted to sort of drop by, and it's Dana's presentation, really. But this
Well,
is
you walked in at the
hopefully a
perfect
place
time,
that,
though,
yeah.
because I was talking about Mike Hammer, who has just come back over to State. He's also a Foreign Service Officer, was our spokesman at the National Security Council for the last 2 years. So the call, I was just describing how all the communicators talk to each other every morning. He led that call for the last 2 years, and now gets to send the rest of us to jump on it as we occasionally get on. So.
Yeah. No, it's one of the hardest things we do in the U.S. government, I guess in any kind of large organization, is to try to get everybody to speak with one voice. Just simply because we're many different entities. You know, you want to hold a government approach, and you want to be consistent so that you don't send mixed messaging. Because reporters have just a really fun time when you sort of speak with different emphasis on different things, and they think that there are divisions, and that creates a news story, and that's not what we're interested in. We're trying to communicate as clearly as we can to the American people in the world what our policies are, so the more we're able to use, in fact, even the same words, because words matter, as you know, then we're much better for it. But it's a tremendous challenge, and yeah, we do it not only in the morning call, but then throughout the day, and consistently, you know, every time there's a senior person that's out, everybody's trying to be as careful as possible to, again, express the thoughts in the same way so that it's not misunderstood.
Right. So I was saying that some of the traditional things, PA type things that we do are, so this daily press briefing, giving interviews, going on TV, putting out press releases. Where public diplomacy comes into it with foreign audiences, with overseas audiences, is taking those policy positions. I described the whole guidance process.
It's
all
messy,
that
it's ugly.
policy that's thought over and worked on all day, making sure that gets actually to other audiences besides Americans who are sitting here watching MSNBC at night or Fox or whatever, or not watching any TV and getting it online. So that's where the public diplomacy piece comes in more. We can get video clips out to foreign broadcasters. We can tweet it, which, like I said, is one of my favorite ways, because then you also get to take questions and really kind of explain yourself a little bit more. And we basically can enable our spokespeople and their staffs at embassies around the world to take that policy and figure out what are the best ways to communicate it. Public diplomacy includes so much more than just policy. It's a tiny piece of it. So all of the public diplomacy efforts that are going on at embassies, all the students that people talk to, and all of the art gallery openings that people attend, and all of the soccer games they go watch, those are all building relationships. And relationships are what will, hopefully, or in theory, allow us to pursue our interests in a peaceful and multilateral and productive way. So the policy comes into it only in the context of those relationships where there's an interest from your foreign audience, or where there's something you, as sitting in an embassy, maybe you're looking and you see that people in the society don't, what's being said in the newspaper, what's being said on TV about this policy of ours is not right. So then you got to go out and correct it. So that's sort of where public affairs comes into public diplomacy, and where public diplomacy comes into public affairs.
Right.
What did I not? I would love to take questions, but I'm happy to
How many
answer.
of you are interested